So I'm guessing based on what you said that from an operational maturity standpoint, that a company has to get to a certain level in order to be able to take advantage of tools like Halo, because otherwise the scar tissue isn't there to be able to understand what they actually need to do in order to deploy something like that. Is that kind of along the lines of what you were thinking?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've really observed over the past few years is what ConnectWise was really good at, for instance, is their community, right? Where ConnectWise with IT Nation over the years of years had great documentation, great literature. They told MSPs how they should work. So the platform or the product of ConnectWise set the expectations for that MSP. This is how you should work. This is the best way we think you should work to achieve the best output. They did loads around reporting and what good looks like. And they defined to MSPs what expectations or what outcome they should expect if they followed this process, right? And they did that for decades. Problem is, and as we spoke about earlier, the landscape is changing now because a lot of MSPs are going, well, I don't want to work that way. I want to be a little bit different. What if we want to take on this? Or what if I want to, tweak this? And the difference between something like ConnectWise, which is fantastic if you want to be led, with something like Halo is you can go, well, I want to build it my own way. And I want to set my own rules and my own workflows and my own whatever. And that's where the real nuances, I think, are starting to show between MSPs that work in a certain way and want to be really handheld in their operations, which is fine, by the way. I get it. Versus MSPs that really want to carve and be unique and differentiate in the space. That's where these new toolings are coming along, which are more platforms. And I use that word quite openly, but they are more platforms. They take a lot of engineering, a lot of building, a lot of ownership of the product, as opposed to something like ConnectWise and AutoTask, which is, work in this way to achieve this outcome.
Yeah, I noticed that when I work with my clients that are on ConnectWise, there are certain things that we have to do in the way that we build our processes that have to work around the way that ConnectWise is created, right? Like, and then that's going to happen with most tools, but the level of flexibility, I don't think is nearly as there when it comes to ConnectWise as I've seen it with other platforms that may be more software focused, API driven, where there's a more flexible, as you put it, like platform, almost Salesforce-esque, where it's like, we're a platform. We've got a lot of ability to create customization and overlay and integration. How do you want to use us versus here's how you should use us, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, and that tracks back to where we talked about, I think it takes a certain buyer to get the most out of certain modern tooling, right? A lot of modern tooling is a little bit more open than it ever once was. APIs now are, whenever we look at products, the first question is, do they have an API? We've just gone through a HR platform review, and every question or what's Connor is doing, it's like, does it have an API? I don't even know why yet. I just know if it doesn't, it's going to bottleneck me at some point. And it's such an interesting way. Like, if you look at all the partners we work with, what we're really trying to advocate for is you need someone internally who's a little bit developer-y, right? Who wants to learn APIs and maybe a bit of JavaScript and a bit of AI and automation. And these were skills that I didn't know when I launched Renada. I didn't know what APIs were hardly. I knew what they were, and a few vendors at the time were saying you can connect to it, but it was never a thing. Whereas fast forward 4 years, if you're not using an API, you're kind of getting left behind. Building middleware as an MSP these days is becoming a standard process. The problem is no one knows where to begin because none of us are developers, right? Or typically none of us are developers. And it's really expensive. And again, coming back to expectations, to hire a developer because we don't know how to manage them. I own an app now. I don't know how this happened, but we own an app now, and we speak all the time about hiring our first developer. I don't even know. I have no idea how I would manage a developer, how I would interview a developer. Like, I would have no idea. How does it take to fix this thing? They could tell me an hour or tell me 3 months. I have no way of benching, right? And this is kind of where we're at in the landscape now, where things are really shifting, and what was once fixing a server following a guide is becoming, how do we API into it to run an automated script ahead of time? How do we become proactive rather than reactive? It was always something we used to say years ago, but now it is becoming more and more prevalent when you see it in MSPs, right? Those that are proactive are automating using AI. And it's a really exciting time